Hello, and welcome back to Mental Music. Today I'm bringing to you a wonderful friend of mine who's working on a fantastic project that I really feel fits into our theme of this project, who's working a lot around mindfulness and self-led mindfulness and meditation. And yeah, I thought I'd bring him to talk to you about that today. Will, thank you very much for being with me today.
Thank you so much, Max. I'm very excited to be here.
Can you tell how formal and professional this is?
Oh no, I love it. I think this is one of the first. I think this is the first podcast I've ever done, actually. So I'm really excited, if not a little bit nervous.
Well, that's okay. I mean, we've known each other for, nearly 4 years now.
Well, since the bang on start of the degree, really, isn't it?
Literally the start of our degree, which I'm very, very grateful for. But yeah, just as a kind of a general outline for the episode, as well as our interview, our little discussion. One of the things what Will has offered to do for us today is we're going to end the episode with a guided meditation, which he's going to do for us live. So make sure to stick around to the end for that. I'm very excited for that. And if you're on YouTube, there is a point to having video now because there's some animation along with that. So you'll be able to watch that along with it and get you quite into the zone, I imagine. But yeah, back to the matter at hand. Back to the podcast. Thank you for stopping me from rambling. So, Will, just for our listeners, could you describe what you do, how you came into music, and to start us off with what your project Quiet Notes is?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you, Max. The way I got into music isn't particularly exciting, really. So I'm a first study guitarist, which is what I came to the conservatoire to study. And the way I got into guitar was simply by watching my dad play guitar when I was younger. I mean, he's sort of, he had his old guitar and used to play songs, and it just used to be, I was fascinated by it. And so obviously when I got to the age where I was like, can I actually learn this myself? They bought me one for Christmas, and then I just got into it. It's just some nice music lessons. I was very fortunate that my parents were able to pay for music lessons at a good music school, and then continued to support my education all the way up to conservatoire level. And it was quite a journey, really, and it's fantastic, and I can't see my life any other way without the guitar, to be honest. But then when I started understanding the world of mindfulness and meditation was a couple of years before I came to conservatoire, actually, where I was I'd left education, I'd finished my A-levels, and I just came across this book called Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Jonathan Bach, and it's a very philosophical book. I would strongly recommend it to anyone listening, and it's just basically a very short story about this philosophical life of a seagull, which seems really bizarre, but it was completely inspiring and sort of showed me that there was a very different approach and understanding to life, and sort of a lot of depth that I wasn't understanding. And so I sort of started reading more about spiritualism, mindfulness, meditation, and then it got to the point where I was like, I don't want to be just reading about it and having that mental understanding, but I want to have a physical understanding of this as well. So I actually started practicing meditation, and then I started to read about the modern day mindfulness movement, and eventually that led me on to embodied exercises and sort of martial arts. I don't practice martial arts particularly heavily, but I do spend a lot of time thinking about breath work and the body and how that all relates to mindfulness and meditation. And then eventually these two worlds of this sort of spiritual embodied practice and my music, I was like, I want to bring them together, because there is such similarities in music, mindfulness and meditation, which started becoming so apparent to me and have been at the last few years at conservatoire, because what you get from mindfulness and meditation is exactly what I get from performance and listening to music, and this sense of relieving stress, calming feelings, lowering anxiety, but also this idea of focus and better attention and a greater understanding and depth of something which is truthful and meaningful. That's what I got from music as well as mindfulness and meditation. And I was like, there is obviously a really strong combination between the two of them. And so I was like, I've got to bring them together, and that's what I'm doing this year in my final project.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant, and I think that really struck on a chord. What you said about how there's a real parallel between mindfulness and performing as musicians, and that's one thing that I really wish that I could get non-musicians to experience, like, because it is so similar, and it really starts to allow you to make sense of how the world is at the moment for us as musicians, not being able to perform, because for some of us it's like performing is our escape, but it is that focus, and it's a real blissful place to be in.
That's a really interesting. I've never thought about that, actually, this idea of trying to get a non-musician to understand what it's like to be in the middle of that performance. But at the same time, I think everyone does have their own sort of way of finding that feeling, whether you're an artist in the middle of painting a picture or a writer, but even, away from the arts, especially within like sports or something, when you're in the middle of a game or a match or something, and you get into that zone and you feel like you can rule the world type of feeling, isn't it? It's that absolutely ecstatic, flying high feeling. And
you know what that reminds me of recently? Pixar's new movie Soul. Like, that's exactly what that film produces.
Yes, I mean, anyone listening will know exactly. It's that moment where they sink into that world where they're sort of in that spiritual dimension.
In the zone.
In the zone, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, great. Yeah,
that's what it's like.
Movie. Yeah, no, absolutely.
I mean, just as someone who has done a lot of jazz, but then even beyond that to small things, like they animated the saxophone so accurately. I've never seen a saxophone animated that accurately before. It was just a small thing.
Yeah, they are. I bet they get musicians to have a look at it as well, don't they? Because did you ever see Coco, the Disney movie, Pixar Disney movie? It was exactly the same. I read an article in a classical guitar magazine actually about Coco, and the fact that they'd spoken to a guitarist about the actual fingering was exact, and it's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's exactly that. So I think the same was with the saxophonist who played, and they had all that playing live, and the same is for the piano playing. So that's based off of playing and compositions by the phenomenal jazz pianist John Baptiste, like amazing musician who I'd recommend anybody just listen to his stuff and just listen to him talk, because he's just almost a fountain of positivity and like wishful thinking towards like greater love in the world. And yeah, no, the animations were based off of just him playing. They did that frame to frame. Yeah, no, that's why I bring it up, because that's the perfect parallel, and I think that's how we do explain it. It is that zone to be in. But yeah, no, that's brilliant. So Quiet Notes is you bringing together your passion for playing, and then also your passion for that spiritual side of things. So Quiet Notes, the way I understand it from how you've explained it to me, is it's guided meditation through your compositions and kind of merging them in that way. Is that about right?
Yeah. So it works in a couple of different ways, actually. So the project as a whole was this idea to bring together mindfulness, meditation, and music into this business called Quiet Note. And Quiet Note works on two strands, if you were. The first is an online platform which anyone can go to right now, quietnote.com, with a little dash between the quiet and the note. And it's a subscription-based website where you subscribe and you have access to not only music and guided meditation, but articles and points of interest and different styles and types of meditations to focus different parts of the mind and the body. So these are all compositions that I've spent a while putting together myself, and it's just a wealth of resource. What I'm trying to do is create this wealth of resources. So when you're on this website, the three main sections are visualizations, which is actually what I'll be guiding at the end of today's episode. And visualizing is just the art of creating a visual image in the mind, and the music is there to help with that. The second is pieces of music specifically composed to help you relax. So this is all about helping you lower anxiety, help with your stress, or you get to the end of the day and you're finding it hard to relax and get out of your head, and you put on your headphones and it just helps you drift off into that relaxed state. And the final one, which is probably where a lot of my attention has been going, is the exercise section. And this is actually training your mind, and this is where we get into some like focused mindfulness, deep meditations, in which we're either training like a specific point of focus for the mind, or we're looking at extended meditation. What's a good is this making sense?
No, it absolutely does.
Yeah.
Absolutely does. Because even though I have like a general understanding of mindfulness, my meditation knowledge is very limited, although I do try to on a every couple of days basis. But it's interesting to always look into it for me, and then realize how much there is, because like I've been exposed to it as like it's almost felt to me like a bit of a buzzword in when talking about mental health over the past couple of years. Mindfulness, it's like, oh, you should try mindfulness. Oh, mindfulness is really great for this. It's like, what is it? And to me, like, it's sitting down and like taking a moment to just think about the world around you. So I don't know how it would fit into like the categorizations of mindfulness, but one trick I always do is I'll sit down and I'll close my eyes and I'll think about 5 things I can feel, and then I'll think about 5 things I can hear, and then I'll open my eyes and trying to focus on like more of a periphery of my vision, like 5 things I can see. And that's just a mindful thing that I do. But from what I read about and what you talk about, it feels like there's a whole other side of world to mindfulness than just, little exercises to just take your mind off things.
Yeah, I mean, the point you sort of raise about, mindfulness being a little bit of a buzzword and it's just getting thrown around a little bit. I mean, I think it does sometimes get a little bit thrown around, and I think, it sometimes can be a little bit off-putting because it sometimes feel like there's so much out there. But that's kind of why I'm trying to come from a musical point of view. We can all relate to music. Music is so accessible. Everyone, it doesn't matter what culture, religion, race, no matter, everyone has that sort of close relationship to music. And so what I want to do is, using the music, I want to help ease people into this understanding of mindfulness and meditation, because we can all relate to music, but sometimes actually wanting to take that step to understand mindfulness better or understand meditation better can seem maybe a little bit daunting, or that you don't have enough time. But if we use something like music, which we're all familiar with, it might just help us understand it that little bit better, and eventually get the results from mindfulness and meditation, which is what we want to do. We want to have that connection. And what you said about what is mindfulness, to me, mindfulness is just a way of connecting to the now, to the moment, to what is present in our bodies. It's a deeper understanding of who we are. It's a deeper understanding of how we feel. And really, the biggest results is we lead a happier, more fulfilled life.
Yeah, it's something as simple as mindfulness is the now. I like that. That's quite a nice line to it, but not too much that you're throwing it out there a bit too much. Oh, that's really cool. So I wanted to ask with how your process has been with this. So because obviously you're composing a lot of this music by yourself. Where do you start with your composition process for writing things for meditation? Like, do you have any key inspirations for where your writing comes from, particularly?
Sorry, Emily just came in through the door and completely threw me off. Then
You can shout hi to her from me.
Sorry, I had a question lined up perfectly for you then, Duke, but then it just completely flew away. Can you ask the question again?
I can. So, I wanted to ask about your process of how you create these, guided meditations, and because obviously you're composing a lot of this music by yourself. Where would you say your key inspirations for writing come from? Like, where do you start in terms of thinking, how do I write for someone to meditate to? Or is it not even that? Because I feel that's quite a small-minded approach to thinking about that.
No, it's a really interesting question, to be honest, and it's something I sometimes ask myself as well, because something which I do find is I do tend to get a lot of inspiration within the moment. So I'll sit down, usually with my guitar. That's usually my starting point, actually just sitting down and just either playing some chords, but it's actually trying to relate, how do these sounds relate to the meditation? And when I say guided meditation, it's not your traditional someone talking to you. I'm actually wanting the music to guide you. So I can come from 2 points really. If we were looking at a specific focused exercise, such as a deep listening exercise, I'll give you an example, which is one of the tracks on Quiet Note is you hear this choir, which starts off really quietly, and it basically builds up and up in dynamics until it gets to quite a large chord with multiple voices in it, at least 12 or 13 voices in it, and then it dies down. But the thing with this piece of music is at no point is the dynamic level, the volume level, still. It's forever changing. All these voices are either changing dynamic quickly, getting louder really fast, or getting quieter. And the point of the exercise is to bring that focus into that piece of music. The more you dedicate your attention and focus to the music, the more you hear. Sometimes the changes are really subtle, sometimes they're quite obvious, but the more focused you become on that music, the more you hear. And so that's quite a sort of, that's looking at an exercise point of music. So actually coming from there, it's actually more of a methodical, how do I write this actually, using the dynamics and actually in the production. But when it comes to the more ambient music, which is used for relaxation and the visualizing, that's more just coming from a point of view in how can I use these harmonies, these notes, these chords to actually create a comforting sound and make an enjoyable sound that isn't just a general ambient sound, but is actually something which is going to feel comforting for you.
Yeah. Oh, right, I see. That's interesting. That really is. And that, because what that reminds me of, which I think you've posted about now, because part of the website is you have a blog, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Because as part of our course, we worked on a couple of pieces, and that really reminds me of some of the stuff that we worked on like together over that. It's this real focus on, actually, because side note, the pieces that we were working on were for a minimalism module, and one of the key things with that subgenre we were looking into, drone minimalism, was kind of it's making a blur between front and background noise, having things in long distance away sound wise, and in the short foreground, and having that mix, hence why we call one of the pieces middle distance. I take full credit for that name. I thought that was quite clever. But I guess it's that kind of similar approach, having a piece where you're constantly changing dynamic. That sounds really even just intriguing to just listen to as a passive listener, which I guess is the point that you're trying to get to, which is just engaging with music and then using that to open up meditation for the more common folk like myself. Accessibility is really important for me, and actually trying to ensure that everyone
has availability to the music and the meditations. And one of the blogs, actually, one of the articles it's called 10 meditations for each piece. And the first meditation on this list it's called Simply Listen, which is put your headphones on and just simply listen to the music. There's no meditation focus, there's no mindfulness focus, just listening to a piece of music, but ensuring that all your attention is on the music. And that's all it is. And that in itself is a type of meditation, because you're not cooking and listening, you're not driving and listening, you're not doing some work or revising whilst listening, you're just listening. And so all your attention, all your focus is just going into the music, and that's telling your brain, that's training your brain to just focus. And that is really healthy, really, and has a lot of benefits.
Absolutely. I think it's, yeah, no, that's brilliant. I really do need to go on your site a couple more times and just read more into this, because it's for me of recent with lockdowns, it's very much need not to say that I need an escape is not quite the right word, but it's become a focus more in my day to day in the week of taking time to focus, but in on myself, and it really helps kind of bring that focus, but then so that you can go on and just be healthier throughout your day.
It's so important, and I think I do often sort of talk to people who they think self-care is selfish, and that's not the case at all.
It is, but to be selfish is not an inherently bad thing.
Yeah,
that's a pet peeve. That's a pet peeve of mine. Like, if there's one thing that I want to do when I meet anyone and they're saying, "Oh, it feels a bit selfish," like, why do you think that to be selfish is a bad thing? It's not, because through being selfish, is taking time for yourself, and is that a bad thing? No, it's absolutely not. But I completely interrupted what you were saying.
No. I mean, you've completed my point perfectly, which is this idea that taking self-care, it's not a luxury. It's a necessity. We should look out for ourselves. We should care for our well-being. This idea of you've got to constantly work and meet these deadlines, and we've got to get into this nice balance where our work is balanced with self-care and an understanding of the self. And you often find people who are so concerned with others and with their work that they lose track of themselves, and then they sort of get to the end of the day and they feel run down and tired and out of energy. And it's like, that's because you haven't spent any time with yourself today. You've been concerned with the external, and you haven't once given a thought to the internal.
Yeah, and it's a real kind of deep irony where if you're focusing so much on what other people perceive of you, I guess another way of wording that is you're wanting people to love you, but if you're not spending time on yourself, how are you going to be able to fully fulfill that want and that love for yourself? And if you can't love yourself, how can you expect other people to love yourself?
Yeah, no, it's a very important point. And through practices like mindfulness and meditation, and one of my mindfulness teachers, she often says, just start with 5 minutes. And it's like, people often think of meditation as, right, I've got to travel to the Himalayas and I've got to go sit cross-legged at the top of a mountain for hours on end. And it's like, no, you don't even have to sit cross-legged. You just got to do 5 minutes.
Sometimes your joints just aren't up to it.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where this idea of accessibility comes from, because anyone has, everyone can find 5 minutes. Find me someone who says that they can't even find 5 minutes, and I will find them 5 minutes, because we can afford to give ourselves 5 minutes every day.
Always. And why I love that you are doing this, and particularly because on that note of accessibility, because it's becoming, even though there is a degree of it becoming quite a buzzword of a subject, there's a lot of evidence that's going into supporting things like mindfulness being just generally beneficial. You even mentioned to me, because I didn't even know that the NHS just like are officially recommending mindfulness. So it's a well known thing that can help, but the fact that you're now creating a hub for that, I think, is fantastic, because it just means a way for people to find resources to help. And
absolutely, and you've got to, people have got to, because the most important thing is that people gain this understanding, or that they at least give it a go. It might not be for everyone, it might not work, but as long as you've tried and approached it and given it some attention, you might find the benefits, which millions of people are doing, day in, day out. And one thing I'm doing, the unique thing which I'm trying to do, is come from a musical point of view. Whereas, you've got some wonderful, fantastic resources like Headspace and Calm are two applications which people probably have heard thrown around a bit, and they are wonderful apps for guided meditation and especially help with sleep and stuff. But one thing which I want to do is focus on the music side of things.
Yeah, instead of having Matthew McConaughey lulling you to sleep with his voice,
yeah.
Which is a lovely thing in prospect. I'm not sure I could pay for just that, but
well, this is the thing. There's loads of resources out there, and I'm just trying to offer something maybe slightly different or a unique take on it, and people can try it and see if they find any benefits from it, which there are plenty of people who have, which is great. But your point about the NHS, recommending and prescribing mindfulness as a sort of to help with depression and severe anxiety is a huge step forward in proving it. But there's been studies happen all over the world, proper scientific studies, which have gone on to prove loads of things. Anxiety, depression, and irritability all decrease with regular sessions of meditation. Memory also improves, reaction times, and mental, physical, and stamina all increase with regular practice. And I think that word regular is important there, because it's not just sit down for 10 minutes, do some meditation, all your problems are solved. Meditation, like anything, needs practice and a certain level of commitment.
Absolutely. It's that just completely reminds me of therapy, because it's exactly the same principle. It's not a one-stop shop of just like, oh, I've tried it once, it's fixed my problems. Why have I gone northern? But it's that regularity that you need for any of those things to take effect.
I guess therapy is the perfect example, because you can't just go to one therapy session and hope to be cured or sorted out, or whatever term you want to use. You've got to have that, that journey, isn't it? We're all on a personal journey,
and it's that want to implement those things into your life as as a permanent thing. And that just perfectly reminds me of things like cognitive behavioral therapy, which is exactly that. It's you can be taught, and you can have someone telling you things, but if you engage, that's where the real work comes from. So it's got to be similar. Got to be.
Yeah. And the thing, we're very much talking about meditation from a cure perspective, as an after effect of as a treatment for depression or stress relief. But one thing meditation and mindfulness also do is they prevent.
Yes, that's a very good point. And we talked about this before, of again, with any sort of self-care and therapy to an extent, it shouldn't be just when things have already happened. It's like, oh no, let's do some damage control. Having mindfulness and meditation as a staple of our lives, it should be a staple of our. I buggered it up.
I think you should keep all these screw-ups in. They sound really funny.
I will keep that one because I can, because this is my project and I can edit as I wish. But yeah, no, it's absolutely. I think you're absolutely right in that. Well, the point I think you were going to go on to say, which is it shouldn't just be an afterthought. It should.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and we want to move away from this idea of you get ill and then you get treatment. We want to move to a place where we get treatment before we get ill, or not necessarily treatment, but we have access to the tools, the resources, and the techniques to help prevent, us getting ill in the first place. And one thing that's been scientifically proven numerous times is that meditation and mindfulness, because of the constant attention and practice of breathing and focused breathing, mindful breathing, like taking regular deep breaths and focusing on your breathing, that changes and alters our internal biochemistry and changes our internal alchemy to help improve our immune system. And so by doing these practices, by doing these meditation practices, we get a stronger immune system. And I'm sure everyone listening will obviously know that a stronger immune system is obviously a very powerful tool.
We're not advocating for meditation to be the complete cure to the coronavirus. But sorry, I thought disclaimer. But yeah, it's really interesting how such a deep effect it has, and it really goes to show how much of an effective thing it is. And even just knowing that you want to get into it sooner.
No, absolutely. And in no way are we discrediting medicine or doctors or nurses or the incredible work and resources we have available to us with modern medicine and science. It's no way discrediting that. It's actually very much on the same page in relationship with that. It's there to help prevent disease, which is this sort of the direction we want to go.
Yeah, and then that's just comes back to the whole idea, I think, of physical health and mental health. It's all about your health.
I like that. Yeah, no, that's brilliant.
It just is. Yeah, no, exactly. It absolutely is. Well, that's been really insightful, Will, and thank you for being on. I'm literally just taking the time. I might do that again.
I know it's gone quick, hasn't it?
It does go quick.
Yeah, it really does.
And that's, I think, not in a weird way, but in a tangential way. This is another form of mindfulness for me because it comes in conversation. That's where I get some of my biggest mindfulness, almost joy, I guess. It's from having these conversations, or just conversations with anyone, because you can just really sink into that as a whole. But this has been really insightful. Thank you for coming on to record this episode with me, Will.
No, thank you so much for inviting me on, and I hope I've had a great time. It's been brilliant.
Fantastic. There we go. There's a good review. As I've said before, I'll put links to Quiet Note in descriptions. And if you would like to take it away, you're going to lead us into a little meditation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Max.
And I'm gonna mute myself, but I'm very much going to follow along.
Wonderful. I invite you now to find a comfortable position wherever you are. You could be lying down, seated, or standing. To begin our meditation, I first want us to move our attention to the breath, keeping in mind that the breath is a wonderful anchor to the present moment. The breath is never concerned with the past or the future. The breath is just the moment. It is our now. Take your hands now to the center of your stomach. feel the movement of your breath. And just spend a few moments observing your breathing. In a moment, I'm going to lead us with 3 deep breaths. Let all the air out of your body. Breathe in deep. Breathe out. Breathe in deep. Breathe out. Breathe in deep. And relax the breath. In a moment, we are going to start a visualization. As I lead us into this visualizing, I'll ask you a few questions. And I don't want you to think about the answers. That may sound strange. But instead, when I ask you these questions, I want you to allow the images and the visualizations just to bubble up through your body into your mind. I would now like you to imagine you're walking down a beach that you've been to at some point in your life. It can be a favorite beach, or a beach you've just visited once before. Maybe a far off sunny beach you visited once when you were younger on holiday. Or it could be a beach you've been to every year, a family favorite. I want you to imagine walking down towards the ocean. For this visualization exercise, I invite you to visualize the image of this beach. Look out and see the ocean, the ever-stretching sands and beaches. Smell the air, taste the sea air, and allow this visual image to grow stronger as the music plays.